All right, so have you ever felt like those random encounters you're using in your D&D games are just...
Too random.
Yeah, too random. Like,
Just kind of thrown in there.
they're just thrown in there and there's no real purpose.
Yeah.
Like, it happened to me just the other night.
Oh, really?
I was, my players were in this creepy abandoned temple.
Okay.
You know, the one like cobwebs everywhere, strange symbols carved into the walls.
All right.
I was really going for that Indiana Jones vibe.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
their exploration was interrupted by a group of kobolds
Oh, no.
riding giant chickens.
Giant chickens.
Giant chickens.
Wow.
It totally broke the tension, and my players were just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It just didn't fit the atmosphere at all.
That is a perfect example of why using thematic random encounter tables can be such a game changer.
Okay.
And it's something that Paul Bellow over at LitRPG Reads talks about in his latest article.
So for those of us who might not be familiar with this concept, can you break down what thematic random encounter tables actually are?
Absolutely. Imagine instead of having one massive list of random encounters, you create several smaller,
Okay.
more focused lists.
Okay.
Each of these lists or tables is tailored to a specific theme or setting.
So like in my abandoned temple example,
Exactly.
instead of random chickens,
Right.
you'd have a table specifically for temple encounters.
Yeah, like a temple encounters table.
So what kind of encounters would be on temple encounters table?
Well, you could have things that make sense within that environment and atmosphere.
Okay.
Think crumbling statues that come to life,
Yeah.
whispers of ancient curses echoing through the halls, or maybe even ghostly apparitions guarding sacred relics.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's about making those random encounters feel less random
Less random.
and more connected to the overall story.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that's just one of the many benefits. When
Yeah.
you use thematic tables, you're not just rolling dice, you're curating an experience. It's like being a DJ. For your D&D campaign, carefully selecting each track to create a specific mood and flow.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not just about making things more immersive.
Right.
It's also about enhancing the storytelling aspect of the game.
Exactly. Think about it. Every encounter, even a seemingly random one, can become an opportunity to reveal something about the world, its history, or even the characters themselves.
Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Okay, I'm all ears.
In a recent campaign I ran, my players were traveling through a vast desert.
Okay.
I had a desert encounters table that included things like sandstorms, nomadic tribes, and even mirages.
Okay.
But one of the encounters was a lone weathered tombstone.
For tombstone.
Yeah, half buried in the sand.
Intriguing.
It was. And instead of just passing it by,
Right.
one of my players, a curious rogue, decided to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
As he brushed away the sand, he uncovered an inscription
Okay.
that hinted at a lost city buried beneath the dunes.
Wow.
It was...
That's amazing.
And that one little encounter sparked a whole side quest. They spent the next few sessions searching for the lost city, uncovering ancient secrets, and battling forgotten guardians.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened if I hadn't used a thematic table
Yeah.
to guide those random encounters.
That's such a great example of how a seemingly simple encounter
Yeah.
can lead to something much bigger.
Exactly.
And it all ties back to that idea of weaving a narrative through those random moments.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is that you can tailor those encounters to fit your specific campaign and your players' interests.
Yeah.
Do they love solving puzzles? Include cryptic messages or riddles in your tables?
Okay.
Are they fascinated by ancient lore?
Yeah.
Add encounters with wise hermits or talking statues that can share snippets of forgotten knowledge.
This is all starting to sound incredibly exciting.
Right.
But I have to admit, the thought of creating all these different tables from scratch is a little daunting.
I am...
Where do you begin?
It's actually not as complicated as it might seem. The article by Paul Bellow outlines a really helpful step-by-step process, and we'll get into that right after a quick refreshment break. But before we dive into the nuts and bolts of how to design these tables, I want to touch on something else that I think is really fascinating about them.
Okay.
It's this idea that they can act as a bridge between your players' characters and the world you've created.
Okay.
We talked about making those random encounters feel less random, but what's even more powerful is making them feel personal.
Personal, you mean like tailored to the individual players?
Exactly. It's about taking those backstories, you know, those unique quirks and motivations that your players bring to the table, and weaving them into the fabric of the world through these encounters.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Can you give me an example?
Sure. So imagine you have a player whose character is a paladin, sworn to uphold justice and protect the innocent.
Okay.
Maybe in their backstory, they witnessed a loved one being victimized by a corrupt official, which fueled their desire to become a paladin in the first place.
That's a great backstory.
Right.
Yeah.
So now instead of just having them encounter, random bandits in the forest,
Right.
you can use a thematic table to create an encounter that resonates with their backstory.
Okay.
Maybe they stumble upon a group of travelers being harassed by corrupt guards,
Okay.
mirroring that pivotal moment from their past.
Wow, that would be incredibly impactful for that player.
Right.
Suddenly, it's not just a random fight, it's a chance to relive and perhaps even redeem a painful memory.
Exactly. It's about turning those random encounters into personal moments, opportunities for those characters to confront their past, their fears, or even their deepest desires. And it goes beyond backstories, too.
How so?
Think about the choices your players make in the game.
Okay.
Let's say they decide to help a struggling village defend itself against a marauding band of orcs.
Classic heroes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that choice could influence the types of encounters they have later on. Maybe they gain a reputation for their bravery.
Uh-huh.
And word spreads, leading to more encounters with people seeking their help.
Okay.
Or perhaps the grateful villagers offer them a gift, a magical trinket with a unique property.
Yeah.
That becomes a recurring element in their adventures.
I love that. It's like those ripples in a pond
Yes.
where every action has a consequence, and those consequences shape the world around them.
Exactly. And that's where thematic tables become so much more than just a way to generate random encounters.
Okay.
They become a tool for creating a dynamic, reactive world that responds to the player's choices and actions.
This is making me rethink my entire approach to random encounters.
I know, right?
It's not just about throwing dice.
Right.
It's about creating a web of cause and effect.
Yeah.
A living, breathing world that feels truly responsive to the players.
And that's not even touching on the world-building possibilities.
No.
These tables can be used to flesh out the history, the culture, the political landscape
Okay.
of your campaign setting in really organic ways.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a good world-building exercise.
Yeah.
How would you use thematic tables for that?
Let's say you're running a campaign set in a sprawling port city,
Okay.
a hub of trade and intrigue.
All right.
You could create a city encounters table
Okay.
that reflects the city's diverse population and its bustling marketplace.
Mhm.
Maybe your players encounter a group of street urchins trying to pickpocket them,
Okay.
giving them a glimpse into the city's underbelly.
Or maybe they stumble upon a heated debate between merchants from rival guilds, hinting at the economic tensions bubbling beneath the surface.
Exactly. Or perhaps they overhear a whispered conversation about a mysterious cargo being unloaded at the docks,
Yeah.
sparking their curiosity and leading them down a path of intrigue and danger.
I love how those little encounters, seemingly random at first glance,
Yeah.
can actually reveal so much about the world. Like those details in a good novel that add depth and texture to the setting.
And those details can also inform the challenges your players face, not just in terms of combat, but in terms of social interactions, political maneuvering, and even moral dilemmas.
Okay, you've convinced me. Thematic random encounter tables are more than just a way to spice up travel time.
Right.
They're a powerful tool for creating a truly immersive and engaging D&D experience.
Absolutely. And the best part is once you start thinking in terms of themes and connections,
Yeah.
the possibilities are practically endless.
That being said,
Yeah.
I can see how it could get overwhelming trying to create all these different tables,
Sure.
linking them together,
Right.
and making sure they all fit within the larger narrative of the campaign.
Yeah.
Where do you even start when building these more complex thematic tables?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore after this quick break.
Ah.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle this big question of
Yeah.
how do we actually go about
Right.
building these complex thematic encounter tables that are both, narratively rich
Right.
and engaging for our players.
Right.
It can feel a bit like assembling a giant jigsaw puzzle at first. Yeah.
But remember, we're not reinventing the wheel here.
Okay.
We already have a solid foundation.
Right.
We know how to identify themes, brainstorm encounters,
Yeah.
and set challenge levels.
Uh-huh.
Now it's all about layering in
Okay.
those extra dimensions of narrative strategy
Yeah.
and player connection.
Okay. I'm following so far. What's the first layer we should add to our thematic tables?
Let's start with narrative depth.
Okay.
Instead of just listing monsters, or NPCs,
Right.
we want to think about the why behind each encounter.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what's the story here?
Give me an example.
Hmm.
Let's say my theme is encounters in a haunted swamp.
Okay.
What kind of narrative layer could I add?
Instead of just saying, the players encounter a will-o'-the-wisp,
Right.
dig a little deeper. Why is that will-o'-the-wisp there?
Okay.
Is it guarding a lost treasure? Leading travelers astray?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the spirit of a heartbroken lover eternally searching for their lost soulmate. Oh, I like that. Suddenly it's not just a random monster.
Yeah.
It's a character with a purpose, a story that intertwines with the swamp itself.
Exactly. And you can do the same thing with social encounters. Instead of just saying, the players meet a mysterious hermit in the swamp.
Right.
Give that hermit a reason for being there.
Okay.
Maybe they're a former alchemist who retreated to the swamp to experiment in peace.
Uh-huh.
Or perhaps they're hiding from something,
Okay.
guarding a secret that someone would kill for.
So it's about adding those little details, those glimpses into the lives and motivations of the creatures and characters that populate the world.
Precisely. Those details transform random encounters from mere obstacles into opportunities for role-playing exploration and even plot hooks.
Okay, so we've added narrative depth.
Okay.
What's the next layer we should consider?
Let's talk about strategy, particularly in combat encounters.
Right.
We want to move beyond those generic, monsters attack from the bushes scenarios and create encounters that challenge our players tactically.
How do we do that? What kind of elements can we add to make combat encounters more strategic?
Think about the environment.
Okay.
The terrain, the weather, even the time of day
Uh-huh.
can all play a role in how a battle unfolds.
Okay.
Instead of just fighting on open ground,
Right.
maybe your players are ambushed in a dense forest,
Yeah.
forcing them to use stealth and cunning to survive.
Okay.
Or perhaps they find themselves defending a narrow mountain pass against a horde of enemies where positioning and choke points become crucial.
Ooh, I like that. It's like turning the environment into a puzzle that the players have to solve, using their skills and tactics to overcome the challenges it presents.
Exactly. And you can also use thematic tables to introduce unexpected elements that force the players to think on their feet.
Okay.
Maybe a sudden downpour transforms the battlefield into a muddy quagmire hindering movement and creating opportunities for ambushes.
Yeah.
Or perhaps a flock of startled birds alerts nearby enemies to the player's presence, changing the entire dynamic of the encounter.
So it's about embracing the unpredictable.
Right.
Using those random elements to create those oh crap moments that make D&D so exciting.
And those moments are even more impactful when they feel connected to the world and its inhabitants.
Right.
Don't forget about dynamic NPCs.
Okay.
They can play a huge role in shaping those combat encounters.
What do you mean by dynamic NPCs?
I'm talking about NPCs who have their own motivations, their own agendas,
Okay.
and who might react differently depending on how the players interact with them.
Uh-huh.
Maybe instead of just fighting a group of bandits,
Right.
the players encounter a cunning bandit leader
Yeah.
who's willing to negotiate or even strike an alliance with them.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It adds a whole layer of complexity to the encounter, forcing the players to think beyond just attack and defeat.
Exactly. And you can even use thematic tables to determine how those NPCs might react to certain situations. Maybe if the players show mercy to a wounded bandit, it inspires others to surrender, changing the course of the battle.
Okay.
Or perhaps if the players choose to attack a group of peaceful travelers,
Right.
it attracts the attention of a powerful protector, creating a whole new set of challenges.
It's all so much fun to think about.
Yeah.
It's like we're not just designing encounters, we're creating a world that feels truly alive.
Right.
Full of characters with their own stories and motivations.
And those characters can even provide unique rewards that go beyond the standard gold and magic items.
Okay, talk to me about rewards. How can we use thematic tables to create more meaningful and memorable rewards for our players?
Instead of just handing out generic loot,
Right.
think about rewards that tie into the theme of the encounter, or they have some kind of narrative significance.
Okay.
Let's say your players help a group of villagers defend their homes from a monstrous attack.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving them gold,
Right.
maybe the grateful villagers offer them an heirloom, a magical amulet that has been passed down through generations, imbued with the village's protective spirit.
That's beautiful. Or maybe the players solve a puzzle in an ancient tomb.
Yes.
And instead of finding treasure, they uncover a lost scroll that reveals a hidden truth about the world's history.
Exactly. Rewards don't always have to be tangible items.
Right.
They can be information alliances.
Yeah.
Or even opportunities that shape the course of the campaign.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for designing encounters.
I hope so.
One that focuses on narrative strategy and creating a world that feels truly alive. And remember, it's all about experimentation and having fun. Paul Bellow's article over at LitRPG Reads is an excellent starting point.
It is.
But don't be afraid to break the rules. Adapt his ideas and come up with your own unique twists.
Exactly.
So to our listeners out there, we challenge you to take what you've learned and create your own thematic encounter tables. What themes will you explore?
I know, right?
What stories will you tell?
I love it.
Share your ideas in the comments below.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear what you come up with.
Until next time, may your dice rolls be ever in your favor.
Yes.
And may your encounters be thematically appropriate.